my peeps. Algebra Nation Workbook, page 107, problem square root 49.
Which of these expressions is equivalent to this big guy here? All right, so I'm going to start with this. Assuming y is greater than 0, what does that mean? That's just some math nerd stuff we don't really need. It's not going to change our answer here, all right? What we do need to do is we need to take this expression, we need to simplify it to make it look like our answer choices. All right, so how do we do that? Well, the first thing is to write it down, copy it down again. We have 5 times the square root of 125 y cubed plus 2 times the square root of 80 y cubed. All right, so let's see. I want to work through here. Well, we have these square roots, and notice under the square root we have a number, a coefficient multiplied by a variable for both of these. But what we can do to make this a little bit easier is we're actually going to deal with them individually. So let's split that up. We have 5 times the square root of 125 times the square root of y cubed. I think that helps me a little bit. I'm going to deal with this one, then that one. I don't have to worry about doing it all at once, right? We'll do the same thing to this term here. Split it up. Square root of 80, square root of y cubed. All right, now let's just go along the whole thing and see what we can simplify here. So this first one, 5. Oh, well, that's already 5, right? Okay, so that's good. Cool. Go with where that is. Now, square root of 125. Can I do the square root of 125? That's probably a good place to start. Just, hey, calculator, what is that? Ah, crap. All right, that's not going to work, is it? 11.18. Definitely not any of my answer choices here. So, I can't just take the square root of 125. But what I can do is I can look at my answer choices and see that this problem was written really easy. It sort of gave me a clue. It said, hey, you're going to leave a 5 underneath the square root. At every one of these answers, I got to leave a 5 under the square root. All right, so what is 125 divided by 5? Oh, it's 25. So I could actually take 125 then and factor it so that I have 25 times 5. And so when I go ahead and what I can do now is I can take the square root of 25, right? I know the square root of 25 is equal to 5. So I can take that square root and pull it out. So square root of 25. I have a 5 already out here. Then I'm going to take the square root of 25 to give me another 5. A lot of 5s going on here. And then I still have one 5 left over underneath, so that's going to be a square root of 5. All right, but I need to be careful here. I went a little far. I've got to make sure I deal with this guy as well and bring him down. He's going to be part of this term, so I've got to keep that guy attached. All right, so the reason I did this is because I wanted to do the numbers first. The numbers work differently than the exponents do. All right, here's how the exponents are going, or variables rather, than variables do. So the way that I simplify a variable under square root is I need to look for the biggest even number that is less than this coefficient here. All right, the biggest even number. The reason is that I'm just going to cut the coefficient in half when I take the square root. If you remember, a square root is an exponent equal to 1/2, right? We don't need to know that, but we can know that the exponent just cuts the square root rather just cuts the exponent in half. Okay, so I need an even number so I can cut it in half evenly, right? Well, I have y cubed, and y cubed is going to be equal to y squared times y. All right, so 2 is the biggest even number less than 3, so that's why I picked that number there. And then just like I did over here, I said, all right, evaluate the square root on 25 and pull that out. I can evaluate the square root on y squared and pull that out. So the square root of y squared, as we know, that just cancels out the 2 and leaves us with a y. And then we have square root of y left over underneath. All right, so this is all multiplied by what we've done so far. So let's go ahead and clean this guy up. On the outside of the square root, we have 5 times 5, which is 25. And then we also have a y on the outside of the square root. Let's go ahead and move that guy over. And then left over underneath the square root, we have square root of 5, we have square root of y. So we can actually go ahead and smush those together into one square root, make it square root of 5y.
Ready for a brain break? Please do not channel your inner Peyton Manning on the EOC. That is not worthy of a $3.99. Denied.
That's just a rule that we have. When we multiply two things that are under a square root together, you can actually combine them, put them under the same square root, and you're good to go. All right, so let's go ahead and do this other term then. We've sort of neglected that one. Don't forget to deal with that term, because on the EOC, these answer choices will be written a little differently, and you'll probably have one that is 25y out in front. So if you just do the first term, and you're like, got it, boom, circle that answer, that's not going to be correct. So we need to make sure we deal with this side as well. All right, so we're going to do the same process we did. We still have that 2. Sorry, now we have a 2 instead of a 5, right? But we still have a coefficient outside the square root to start with. All right, now we have square root of 80. So kind of like we did here, right, we have to split that up, and basically we need to figure out, as we know, we're going to have to get a 5 underneath that square root as well. So take 80 and divide that guy by 5. We get 16. So we're going to end up with square root of 16 times 5. That's how we're going to factor that. And then for our y cubed, we're actually going to do the same thing we did here. It'll be square root of y squared times y. All right, so take the square root here. We have 2. And then we take the square root of 16. That gives us 4. We'll be left with a square root of 5 underneath. And then we're going to multiply that by this guy simplified. It's going to simplify the same way. It'll be y times the square root of y. All right, now 2 times 4 gives us 8. Again, we have a y outside. Then we have square root of 5 times square root of y, which gives us square root of 5y. All right, so we're super close here. So close to the answer. But I still have 2 different terms. So how do I put these 2 together? Well, just like when I have 6x plus 4x, there I can combine like terms. And what I do when I say combine like terms is I add the coefficients together, the 6 and the 4. I add them together, and I can do that because they're both multiplied by x. All right, so in this case, I want to add these coefficients, right, 25 and 8. And the only reason I can do that is because they're both multiplied by y square root 5y. So this is like one big mess, but it's basically just like x when we combined like terms. So we're going to combine these terms together by adding 25 to 8, and that gives us 33y times the square root of 5y. And there's our answer. Go ahead and look up top, and we see, yes, answer choice A is 33y times square root of 5y.